Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another video. Over the last few days, I've been breaking down various scenes, characters and themes from Andor episode 11. With 3 days to go until the season 1 finale, we're going to keep that trend going, but today, instead of human characters, we're going to be focusing on B2. A big question that Star Wars fans have had since 1977 is how much droids can feel in universe, both on a physical and emotional level. If we're talking about the OG Star Wars droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO exhibited a range of emotions, from anxiety and joy to sadness and despair, and the reason I'm using them as examples is they're the best documented droids for a question like this. From the moments they first interacted on screen, their relationship showed us a caring and compassionate side to them, as well as of course differences of opinion, humorous quality to their relationship, and sassiness, and at times it was like watching an old married couple griping over the day's events. Outside of these two, we've also witnessed emotion exhibited from Chopper in Star Wars Rebels, BB-8 in the sequels, K2SO in Rogue One, and even some battle droids in the Clone Wars, and the list goes on and on. At times, Star Wars even made light of this question.
Not us. We're independent thinkers.
But the Andor series has expanded our perspective of droids and their emotions through one droid in particular, B2EMO, and it all took place in one single scene following Maarva's death. In some ways, it raised more questions than we had before. This morning, I came across a wonderful article put out by Collider where they attempt to answer some of these, but they took a different approach. Instead of focusing on sentience, they take the angle of droids and their perception of time compared to sentient creatures. This approach could very well be the key to answering the question of just how much can droids feel in the way of complex emotions. Now, just as a disclaimer, I will say that Star Wars doesn't always have to make sense. I mean, sure, it's odd from the outside looking in that essentially robots have feelings in this franchise, but you can enjoy it so much better if you can overlook details that don't make sense here on Earth. So with that intro and background out the way, let's talk about the curious case of B2EMO. Ever since his first appearance in Andor, B2 has won our hearts. Our favourite new droid is fiercely loyal, he's honest when giving advice, and he's not afraid of voicing his feelings. In the show's latest episode, Daughter of Ferrix, the penultimate episode of Andor Season 1, B2 made us all cry with the way he's dealing with Maarva's death, exactly like a young child, or I think more so, a loyal dog. And this raises an inevitable question: how do droids deal with death, especially of loved ones around them? Now, we did see Chopper grieve the death of Kanan, and we've seen R2-D2 and C-3PO mourn quite a few deaths, and B2EMO's story with the Andor family is not unlike those. But what I think is different about B2's despair is how raw it was. He voiced his feelings in a way we've not seen from other droids in mourning. And on top of that, he's now all alone. Sure, he's got Brasso and Bix, but he's lived through Clem and Maarva dying, and to make it worse, he feels abandoned by Cassian. So in B2, we see a droid that is helpless and heartbroken. We've not seen it this blatantly from a droid before, and at least 3PO had his mind wiped in Revenge of the Sith. But droid grief in general has to be fundamentally different. They're not organic beings, so they don't experience existence in the same way that humans or other aliens do. For one, the concept of dying is alien to them, even though they see it happening all the time. Generally speaking, droids don't usually get to die, or at least not completely, so seeing a person grow old, seeing their health decline and eventually pass away is understandably difficult for a droid like B2. The attachment to Maarva and the Andor family in general was very strong. The life cycle of droids is very different. They're made or produced, switched on, and don't face the possibility of ceasing to operate unless thrust upon a dangerous situation. Bear in mind that running out of battery is not often a problem, at least not up until this point in the franchise. And so going back to the concept of time, they don't face the effects of the relentless passage of it in their own bodies. They're either repurposed, have broken parts fixed, changed, or whatever. But what's really interesting is they do experience physical pain, as most of them have sensors and receptors for that purpose.
This oil bath is going to feel so good.
And as such, they are capable of development, learning, and also functionally maturing. Now, one concept very prevalent throughout Star Wars history is that of droids with a personality matrix, which means they're self-aware, sentient, and have an attachment to one owner. This is seen with 3PO and R2 with the Skywalker family, L3 and Lando, BB-8 and Poe Dameron, and Andor and K2SO. But before K2 comes into the picture, the Andor series introduced B2, and B2 had that for Maarva, and to some extent, Cassian. It's a peculiar in-between point, where they are technically alive, but not not really, they're like a loyal pet, but one that never technically dies. And if they do, it's usually an extremely sad situation, precisely because of how unnatural it is for them. Fortunately, and fingers crossed, it doesn't look like B2EMO is facing any kind of threat anytime soon. But droids like L3, IG-11 for the time being, K2SO, and Ned B all faced quite tragic deaths. But once again, the Andor series added something new, because this time a droid, B2, is not just a companion, he was literally part of the Andor family. He went everywhere with them and was fully integrated into their familial structure. We still don't know how B2 came into their midst, but the flashback in the first arc of the series shows he was already part of the family before they adopted Cassian on Kenari. Whatever they did before that though, they eventually settled on Ferrix as a proper family, and B2 was treated as part of it, even by their friends. Brasso cares about him, and so does Bix, and I think Brasso is going to be the next owner. When B2 first appeared in Daughter of Ferrix, we only saw his photoreceptor in a shot that emulates how Stanley Kubrick showed HAL 9000 in 2001 Space Odyssey. The saddest part of B2EMO's story in Daughter of Ferrix is that not only did he long for Maarva, but he wanted to stay in her home, a house on Ferrix that is now void of life. The memories, the emotion, the attachment, companionship, and love were all very present. The irony being present in a non-sentient droid. And that photoreceptor captured all of that life, all those memories. And for us as sentients, dying is part of life, something as natural as being born. For droids, that's not necessarily the case, but they do witness it and feel the effects of it. And the scene with B2 mourning the loss of his owner reminded me of R2-D2 at Leia's funeral, both similarly tragic, but somehow B2's emotion, the fact he talks in basic, made it all the more emotional and tragic. And I guess the big question about B2 going forward is who is going to be his new permanent owner, and secondly, is he ever going to get over this? It was similarly touching to see Brasso genuinely care about B2. He consoled him in the same tone as a family friend would to a child who just lost their parent, heart to heart, caring for his best interests. And I've got to say, B2 is not a droid I ever thought I'd care about this much. The first time I heard about him, I was like, okay great, a new droid. But, as expertly as they've written every other character, Gilroy and his team gave us reasons to give a damn and to be invested in his journey. I wish B2 nothing but reciprocated love for his future. He really deserves the world. But share your thoughts in the comments down below, guys. How do you feel about B2EMO as a character? Did you feel sad when he was mourning? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and if you want more videos not found here on YouTube, while also getting your name at the end of my videos, click the link down there in the description. But until the next one, guys, may the Force be with you always.